Hello, this is Emil Lord, Chairman Altif, Head of Linguistics, BAETTA Bangladesh, welcoming you to enjoy English literature, world literature, linguistics, and ELT series lectures. Today, I'm here with World Literature Paper 1, Translation Studies, Lecture 2. As a part of BA Honours and MA in English programs, this lecture is on the translation industry and professional translators as well as 18 major types of translations, which is a very important and one of the most common topics of translation studies course. So this video is very helpful to you. Let's get started. Introduction. Translation is a field that is seeing a lot of activities nowadays with the increasing globalization of business and communication. International travel has also increased significantly for both business and leisure. This means there is at any given time a large number of people in a country that don't necessarily speak the local language well. Of course, these augurs are well for the translation industry. There has been a substantial growth and new types of translations are emerging. Each one is unique with its own process and specific requirements. This ramification happening at the translations discipline also requires a shift to a very particular type of translator, one that is trained for certain business and has a very specific knowledge, specifically distinct knowledge in interlingual translation, interlingual translation, and intersemiotic translation. Now, I will discuss the major translation industries, professional translators, along with 18 main types of translations. Let's go. Translations can be broadly classified into two big categories of translation: Group A, business related translation, and Group B, non-business related translation. The other most common types of translation services that we see are literary translation, professional translation, technical translation, and administrative translation. However, there are some kinds of translations sort of overlap in all of the above categories. So, let's examine the 18 most important types of translation that are performed separately nowadays. Number 1. Literary translation. Literary translation is the most reputed work in the realm of translation, which has entirely enriched world literature and classic literature to the multilingual readers. The name is pretty self-explanatory. It refers to the translation of literary works like stories, novels, poems, and plays. It's often considered the highest form of translation because a literary translation is so much more than the mere conveying of the meaning and context of the document in the source language into the target language. It involves incorporating the appropriate cultural nuances, translating humors, feelings, emotions, and other subtle elements of a particular work. Many literators believe that it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to translate works of literature, especially poetry. Some examples of situations that could be very difficult are rhyming words, puns, idioms, anagrams, and so on. Often, there are no appropriate translations in the target language and the cultural nuances are lost. Have you ever tried translating a joke into another language? If you have, you would understand this Haven't you felt that it didn't seem as funny when translated? Often, many subtle connotations the writer has hinted at are lost in translation. Then there is the matter of the individualistic writing style of the author. This type of translation has a tough job in attempting to convey that uniqueness of the meaning. Number 2, script translation. Script translation is vital nowadays because of many popular movies and TV shows coming out of Hollywood and being dubbed into several languages and released worldwide. Sometimes the films are from foreign languages and dubbed into English and other European languages like the Telugu language blockbuster from India, Bahubali, which was released in Chinese and German among other languages. The Harry Potter series has also released into dozens of languages. But for these releases to happen, the scripts have to be translated first and the dialogues. You can say this is a type of literary translation, but it's not exactly the same. It can be very dicey as translating punchlines, jokes, or catchy phrases into another language to make the same impact is very difficult. With more movies being released in multiple languages nowadays, this type of translation is very much in demand today. Number 3, software localization. Of course, in software localization, the main thing to translate is the user interface, but software localization doesn't end there. It includes error messenger, system messages, help files, and so on. Here too, the content needs to be adapted to suit the local target culture. At times, the translation may be faced with the prospect of internationalization. Take a product like Coca-Cola, which is available almost everywhere in the world. The company will need to have their website in multiple languages, and rather than create multiple websites which could cost a ton of money, it would make more sense to have the software handle several languages and allow the user to translate the page into a language of their choice. If you go to Wikipedia searching for info on anything, you will notice the choice of languages displayed on the left. The localized software may incorporate numerous practical and linguistic issues. Hence, it's vital that it's thoroughly tested before releasing. Reputed translation services companies often have multiple language testing centers to test localized software. Number 4, website translation. Website translation is about website copy subtleties for videos on your web pages and any document you have there. Here, you will also need to change things like currencies, address, formats, and layouts so as to appeal to the different local audiences. You need to think about the languages you want your website to be translated into and localize only those pages which will apply to the target audience. Using a website translation management system to automate and ease the process if you have frequent updates to your website copy. Number 5, multimedia localization. Videos, graphics, animations, GIFs, infographics, all this can be grouped under multimedia localization, and this is very important today as more and more companies are creating multimedia content to widen their audience reach and keep them engaged. Localization, this content can get quick tricky, though it may look simple from the outside, as it has to be appropriate for the local culture and appeal to the customers in that region. If you don't do that correctly, you could end up offending your audience and drive them away. Number 6. Legal translation. Legal translation is one of the most complex translations and involves birth certificate translations and marriage certificate translations, translating contracts, agreements, treaties, memorandums, wills, and so on. A good translator needs to understand the various underlying context of the documents and that of the two major regions or countries for which the documents are intended, the socio-cultural aspects and the politico-legal aspects as well. They would then need to translate in a manner that the target audience easily grasps the text. Even if you are familiar with the cultures and other aspects and are highly skilled at translation, you may need to consult legal professionals so as to ensure that your legal translation is completely error-free. Number 7. Commercial translation. Commercial translation is a kind of translation that necessitates types of translators who possess specialized skills like knowledge of the business jargon and the industry to which the business belongs. The types of text in the translation of commercial documents could include business correspondence, reports, tender documents, company accounts, memos, and so on. Sometimes this could overlap with legal translation if the company handles legal paperwork. Number 8. Technical translation. Technical translation involves any technical content that needs to be translated, as for example, user guides, manuals, online help text, instruction booklets, prospectus, brochures, training materials and videos, marketing materials for technical fields like manufacturing, science or engineering. All of these come in the ambit of technical translation. Formatting is an important aspect where the translation of technical content is concerned, as desktop publishing is required for it. Often the screenshots and even graphics have to be edited to make it suitable for the target languages. Using a content management system will help you keep costs down. When choosing a translator, it's essential to check how well versed they are with the terminology and jargon used in your specific industry. If they are not as familiar with that stuff as you'd like, but they are proficient in the translation as such. By nature, technical content translation is complicated, and even a tiny error may result in a huge mistake at a later point. Therefore, it's a good practice to check how stringent the quality control measures taken by the translation service providers are. Ideally should be ISO certified. Number 9. Judicial translation. When we talk about judicial translation, we basically refer to the activity of translating court documents like depositions, minutes of the meetings, expert testimonies, witness testimonies, judgments, letters, rogatory, interviews, and more, basically activities related to cases. Yes, the nature and scope of this type of translation is different from legal translation, although both are related translation types. The latter is about translating legal documents, which could be very old too. Number 10. bank statement translation service. In most of the multinational and international banks, bank statement translation services are available for they need to translate various statements every day. Many organizations provide the expert to help you translate bank statements, both notarized and certified, at affordable cost. You will have your certified bank statement translations in 24 hours there. Number 11, financial translation. Financial translation is about financial documents like bank records, statements, account statements, and more, which sometimes need to be translated to make it easier for the target audience to comprehend. Here, the actual content that you need to translate may be lesser, but it has to be done precisely. You may also be required to change the currencies, in which case you would need to be converted the figures also. Number 12, medical translations. Medical translation involves any medical content that is patient related, like label, packaging, instructions, or software, and content that is product related, like research papers, clinical trial paperwork, quality management certificates, and the like, usually needs translation. It's absolutely imperative that the translation service providers are experienced, have the requisite knowledge, and are in-country professionals. Translation of medical documents can also be very tricky, as the requirements of general translation can differ from country to country. A kind of translator or company specialized in medical documents would be your best bet, as they would be familiar with the intricacies of all the different requirements. Number 13, administrative translation. In the realm of translation, administrative refers to the translation of management text we often see being used in organizations, whether huge corporations or regional businesses. Though pretty similar to commercial translations, it's not exactly the same. While administrative translation can be called a subset of commercial translation, all commercial translations is not necessarily administrative. Number 14, academic translation. Academic translation is a type of translation that doesn't accept errors. For this reason, the translation should be done very carefully. To do this, it's necessary to take an academic translation course, conduct comprehensive research, and get training on how to do an academic translation, for it's a fertile domain for learning and earning together. Number 15, transcript translation service. In many renowned colleges and universities, they need transcript translators, and academic transcript translation services for your job positions or to study abroad bears a great demand. A professional transcript translators can help you with accurate, fast, and certified transcript translation services. Number 16, machine translation. Machine translation is automated translation. It's the process by which computer software is used to translate a text from one natural language such as English to another such as Spanish. Number 17, Notarized Translation. A notarized translation is a legal process to seal the authenticity of a certified translated document. It prevents any form of fraud or satisfaction of documents, as its legal binding business contracts that are stamped by a notary public in order to secure authenticity and discourage any forgery. Number 18, back translation. Back translation, also called reverse translation, is the process of retranslating contents from the target language back to its source language in literal terms. The back translation process looks like this. A linguist translates the original source text into the new language. Back translation is the process of taking a translated document and translating it back into the original language before comparing the two source language texts. So, for example, you might have a letter in English which you give to a translator to translate into Italian language. Conclusion: other than the above 18 types, there are many more translation types too, and there are all different kinds of processes and technologies that can work for the different types of translation projects. What makes sense for one translation type might not work for another. Translation is necessary for the spread of information, knowledge, and idea. It's absolutely necessary for effective and empathetic communication between different cultures. Translation is also the only medium through which people come to know different works that expand their knowledge. If you want, you can get the best translation service provider who follows a high level of quality control, like a company with an ISO certification. Thanks for staying until the end, and hope you learned something new about all these many different types of translations and the translation industries. Thank you.